And I'm so grateful that Pastor Janet invited me to share a message this morning. But I do feel like I should begin with a warning. This message will be a little bit heavy, but it will also be a little bit light. I believe that our sacred text for this morning helps us to remember something very important, that we are all going to die. Well, our bodies anyway. A French man whose name I barely know how to pronounce, but I'm going to try, Michel de Montaigne, once said, "To practice death is to practice freedom. A man, or human, who has learned how to die has unlearned how to be a prisoner." So, confession, I am not a particularly funny person, but I do appreciate humor, and I really like to laugh. So I thought we could start a rather heavy topic with perhaps a little laughter. It's okay if you just groan instead. At his deathbed, Achilles realized they were going to lose the war, and he uttered his last words: "Defeat hurts." Will glass coffins ever be a success? Remains to be seen. Mozart's headstone reads, "Here lies Mozart, decomposing." All of you professional skiers, you will never die. You'll just go downhill. A cartoonist was found dead in his home. The details are sketchy. That one deserves a groan. For all my life, my dad kept messing with a ledge above the fireplace, lengthening it, shortening it, sanding it, painting it. But he died last week. After I got home from the funeral, I compulsively got my tools out, and I raised the fireplace ledge 6 inches higher. I guess you could say I've taken up his mantle. I came across an advertisement for burial plots, and it occurred to me that it was the last thing I needed. Thank you guys for your laughter and your groaning. Okay, deep breath. We're going to go a little more serious now. The springboard of the message for today largely comes from a reflection that I wrote recently for my board certification as a chaplain. It's a requirement we must fulfill every 5 years. And there were all kinds of prompts that we could pick from. And I think I chose the one that was the most enjoyable, which is, what am I learning and what am I passionate about in my ministry? So I'll be blending in a little bit of that, along with some learning from my own breast cancer journey last year. And again, I'm so grateful to Janet. Janet was present for my peer review and thought that this was worth sharing. So I would be remiss not to give thanks to all the wisdom teachers that I have had and continue to have in my life, especially the people that welcome me into their end-of-life journeys, that teach me so much, my patients and their families. And I must also extend gratitude to my hospice colleagues, and I know some are on Zoom. I'm not going to spend time looking too much, but I know I saw one person at least that I work with. But I work with the most amazing, heart-based people. The CNAs, the nurses, the social workers, the doctors, the chaplains, the office staff, and the management. And it's true, that saying, that many hands make light work. I pray that this message might alleviate an iota of fear that there might be in the collective consciousness about death, and may this be replaced with sweet peace. So the first area I'd like to talk about is what I'm learning about navigating the doing and the being in life. When people ask me what I do for a living, I tell them that I'm a hospice chaplain, and I usually get one of three common responses. Actually, I'm going to put my lanyard on too, because I feel like this is my chaplain attire. I don't have a chaplain hat, but I do have a chaplain lanyard. So I'm usually greeted with silence. People don't know how to respond, right? 2, wow, it takes a special person to do that work. And 3, there's a perceived invitation to begin sharing about a recent loss that the individual has had in their own life. And usually I add something along the lines of, I actually can't believe that I get paid to do what I do. And it's true. While I am grateful for the pay, right, associated with what I do, I love it so much that much about it doesn't feel like work. It's a beautiful mixture of doing and being. The connections, the conversations about what matter most to people, that doesn't feel like work. Getting to be with others, getting to be myself, getting to help create a safe space for someone to be openly and honestly themselves, that's not work. But then, of course, there's the other stuff, right? There's the getting to and from, the GPS, there's the charting, the electronics that can sometimes go haywire, as we know. There's getting myself up and fed and packed lunch and all of that. That's the doing part of it, right? So I'm learning about the doing and the being. I'm also learning about the duality of the lightness, the light, and the dark. A few months ago, at the end of my first visit with a man named Jim, obviously a fake name for the sake of confidentiality, after a prayer with Jim and his wife, I looked at him in the eyes and I said, Jim, your wife told me you were hesitant to have me visit today. What are your thoughts about me coming back again in a few weeks? And no pressure. His answer was, well, it was a little bit heavy. It was also a little bit light. I'm actually surprised I enjoyed it. Yes, you can come back. And his answer has stuck with me for a couple of different reasons. His words reminded me of some of the last words that my grandmother spoke to me before her death in 2018, and has a little something to do with what I'm learning is a strength of mine in the practice of tending to folks as they approach the end of this life and prepare for their next adventure. After getting Grandma cleaned up and comfortable, ready for a night's sleep in her hospice bed, just before her bright soul left her weary body, I asked if there was anything else she needed. And she responded, if you wouldn't mind, Jen, please bring down the light the way you did before. And before I could ask her what she meant, she closed her eyes. She was very comfortable with her morphine. And at first I assumed she was referring to the lights in the kitchen, but they'd already been turned down. And as I sat beside Graham in the darkness that night, And the more I have considered her words over time, I believe my grandma and Jen affirmed a gift that I have, which I would say all of my hospice colleagues share as well, and probably all of you, which is to travel with others into their darkness, to open, to connect, to allow, and to share my inner light or energy with them so that they can connect with their own light again. This willingness and perhaps this courage to enter the mystical darkness and light is such a gift, given and received, like with our peace candle, right, for the world. We pray for the world. This connection, this union, brings everyone more peace, more strength, more gratitude, and it helps us return to that higher energetic vibration of love that we're called to. We're called to enjoy and share. Another area that I'm learning about is letting go. Letting go into the duality of what's known and what's unknown. So Spirit is at work, I believe, in all of our lives, teaching the art of letting go. I recently heard somebody refer to this practice as mothering the uncertainty. Isn't that beautiful? Mothering the uncertainty. I guess we could expand that to parenting, right? To include the men in our midst too. Parenting the uncertainty. This requires a commitment to allowing our perspectives to be changed, to empty ourselves, to open ourselves to a much bigger picture or a larger truth. This requires a commitment to paying attention, for me anyway, if I start to feel anxiety or some block or restriction in the flow, right? Requires me to stop, to take a breath, to intentionally come back to my own inner self, higher self perhaps, where I can continue to trust in the circumstances. I can continue to trust in the process of evolution in this multiverse. Being a lover of nature, as I know probably everybody here, right? Lover of nature, her rhythms can help us so much, as well as knowing ourselves to be part of nature. I moved around a lot as a kid in a military family, and I believe that has helped learn how to let go also, which I'm learning is necessary if we want to befriend death, our own or that of others, those that we love. And friends, it's no secret that we live in a very death-averse culture. Most folks in our culture don't want to think about death, especially their own. And talking about it, that's another level altogether. So Jim, in that story shared a little bit ago, was somebody who hadn't thought much about his own death. Nor had he had opportunities to talk about it. And so what a relief it was for him, actually, right? To have permission and a safe place. And this is what I believe he was referring to about the heavy part of our visit, right? The dark part was going deeper, thinking about it, talking about it. And then the lighter parts were just that ability as human beings to connect and to talk honestly and even laugh as Jim shared stories of this beautiful life that he's lived. He shared pictures of his family, shared pictures of things he was so proud of creating. And as he reviewed his beautiful life, he found strength. strength in his own gratitude for the beautiful life that he had lived, and all the beauty and love that he had created and shared with others. He did the good work, right, of using what he knew or the known to enter what he didn't know everything about, or the unknown. And this changed him and opened him up to a bigger picture. So what an incredible privilege to be present with folks as they delve into the darkness and into the light and practice letting go. So navigating self-care and balancing the duality of grief and gratitude is the next section. Some of you remember Nina, I'm sure. She's hard to forget. We both participated in the Dreamcatcher group. For a few years, we attended worship here. Sometimes we led music together. Well, we broke up a couple years ago, and we were living in Wisconsin at the time. So it was required of me to make preparations to come back to the state. And I arrived back in Washington on Halloween of 2020. And the following March, I was diagnosed with stage 2 breast cancer. So the grief that I experienced and was invited to explore through these traumatic things in my life and the subsequent healing processes was significant. When my marriage dissolved, I wept every day for many months. And then the cancer journey, wow, that brought up some really deep emotions that I thought I had long resolved. For me, and maybe for some of you that I know have had your own cancer journeys or other journeys with other illnesses, for me, the hardest part was seeing and feeling how hard it was on my family. I still remember the look of compassion and shock and fear in my mom's eyes and in my stepdad's eyes when the diagnosis came in, and at various different stages of the journey. And now I see and I feel their gratitude that I'm still here and that I'm feeling good and I'm doing well. So grief and gratitude. I'd like to share another moment that encapsulated both for me. It was last August. The peach tree was full of ripe, heavy peaches. And I was sitting outside, enjoying the sun. I was recovering from this infusion, and I felt like I just needed to ground myself, right? Needed to sit on the ground. I needed to take in the fresh air, and the smell of the peaches was so incredible. And all of a sudden it dawned on me that that might be my last experience of taking in the sweet smell of ripe peaches in the breeze. I sat there and I realized I might not make it to my daughter's wedding, which she just had in June. So I realized I might not make it to her wedding. I realized I might not live long enough to become a grandmother, and I was flung into the deepest sense of anticipatory grief that I have ever experienced. That's a big word in the hospice world. Anticipatory grief, right? So there, under the peach tree, I wept. And something beautiful happened eventually, as often as weeping can do, right? I realized I wasn't just weeping with grief. I realized I was also weeping with gratitude. While I was very aware of not wanting to leave my loved ones or this beautiful planet, right, I became aware in a new way what a gift it was to be there, right there, in that moment. It was a perfect moment. I became grateful that I had, at that time, 50 trips around the sun. What a gift to be part of the unified consciousness of God, of love. And I let go into this universal intelligence, and I savored the beauty outside of me and within me, and I realized there is no such thing as death. So speaking of the possibility of there being no such thing as death, I'd like to share a story, another patient story. I had a patient named Al, and Al was a physicist. He didn't believe in God, he didn't believe in an afterlife. And imagine my surprise when Al invited me to visit him. And friends, we had really great conversations. He had battled cancer for over 20 years, and it had popped up in the most unusual places, including all throughout his arm. He had survived drug trials. He had scars everywhere. He was pretty proud of them, and rightly so. And he was also extremely frustrated by his growing physical weakness, his inability to take care of himself. He inquired about physician-assisted dying, but he didn't follow through with it. Mostly, he didn't want to linger in bed or continue growing increasingly dependent on his family. They were already exhausted. He was already pretty fed up with them, honestly, and they with him, in that loving, honest, open kind of way. So one day, in between visits with Al, I was kind of looking through, I carry a little folder with beautiful poems and prayers, little resources. So I was kind of flipping through it, and I came across a poem that Spirit really nudged me to share with Al during our next visit. Maybe some of you are familiar with this one. Do not stand at my grave and weep. I am not there, I do not sleep. I am 1,000 winds that blow. I am the diamond glints on snow. I am the sunlight on ripened grain. I am the gentle autumn's rain. When you awaken in the morning's hush, I am the swift, uplifting rush of quiet birds in circled flight. I am the soft stars at night. Do not stand at my grave and cry. I am not there. I did not die. Did you hear that line about the stars? I am the soft stars at night. Well, that was the line for Al. He mused about it a little while, and I watched him have an aha moment. Well, I've always believed in the Big Bang. I've always believed that somehow we've all come from the stars, that we are made of star stuff. Perhaps we come from the stars, and then somehow, perhaps we return to them. Chaplain Jen, I think I might believe in immortality after all. my cancer treatment, I feel a deeper kinship with everyone who's ever gone through cancer and their families. I have a deeper understanding of what it means to befriend death, to grieve the myriad losses, body, mind, and spirit, that this human life brings us. And I have relearned to feel gratitude for the beauty of life, for each day, for each fleeting moment. And I've relearned and will hopefully keep learning what it means to love others, to love all living beings, and even to love myself. That could be a whole different sermon right there. I have relearned that love makes me incredibly vulnerable, but also incredibly powerful. I've come to understand that there is room in each moment, in each visit, in each encounter that we have in life for both grief and gratitude. And friends, learning to balance them both, I have discovered is one mark of spiritual maturity. In any moment, there's something to grieve, and in every moment, there's something to celebrate, if we're being honest. Right? So, I think this will be the last thing that I share, something else that I have learned. I've noticed that the send-off prayers that I offer for my patients have become more effective. I have a deeper understanding of what it means to let go, to anticipate even a temporary farewell from this world. And I believe that awareness makes the prayers for people that are about to let go a little more effective. And one way that I can measure that is there's less time now between that prayer and my patients taking their last breath. So I do feel a stronger connection with them. I have a deeper understanding of unity that Jesus was surely talking about when he prayed before his death, that they may all be one. A French man whose name I'll try to pronounce again, Michel de Montaigne, once said, "To practice death is to practice freedom." A human who has learned how to die has unlearned how to be a prisoner. What a precious miracle to be alive right here, right now, together. But memento mori, friends. Remember that we died. And may this awareness deeply impact the present moment, our discernment, our choices, our values, our priorities, and how we live this little bit of time that we have on this beautiful planet with each other. Let us fill our humble barns with love for God and for each other, and yes, even love for ourselves. And in closing, a quote by a Stoic philosopher whose name is equally challenging to pronounce, Epictetus, I think. Epictetus once said, "I cannot escape death, but at least I can't escape the fear of it. Thank you for listening. We're going to move into a very beautiful song, hopefully, if the technology allows. Are we good? We're hoping. There are lyrics for the song in your bulletin, and once you get the hang of it, I know you're a very musically gifted group, so feel free to sing. And it's hard to listen to this one and not get up and move, so feel free to do that too. Really wanted to share that song with you. So beautiful. So we are going to move into our joys and our concerns. And in the words of my grandma, bring down the light. So I'm going to open our prayer time with another Wendell Berry poem. It's called I Go Among the Trees. And after a few minutes in silence to think about it, and to let anything come up that might want to come up for prayers, we'll join our voices together at that time. I go among the trees and sit still. All my stirring becomes quiet around me, like circles on water. My tasks lie in their places where I left them, asleep like cattle. And then what is afraid of me comes. It lives a while in my sight. What it fears in me leaves me, and the fear of me leaves it. It sings, and I hear its song. And then what I am afraid of comes. I live for a while in its sight. What I fear leaves it, and the fear of it leaves me. It sings, and I hear its song. After days of labor, mute in my consternation, I hear my song at last, and I sing it. And as we sing, the day turns, and the trees move.